American Psycho does answer its ending. It answers it in plain sight. Patrick Bateman did not kill those people. The film shows a man with a shattered mind and lets us live inside his version of events. That is why the movie keeps breaking its own reality, why the violence grows more absurd with each step, why the ending lands with a confession that means nothing. The point is not that Bateman got away with murder. The point is that he is so hollow, so sick, and so desperate to matter that he builds a fantasy of control, violence, and recognition inside his own head. The film gives you the proof and gives it to you early, and then it keeps pushing that proof until the whole thing collapses. The story is built like a confession. Bateman narrates his routines, his skincare, his clothes, his business cards, his restaurants, his taste, his body, his empty little rituals. He speaks in the first person. He presents himself as a man with total control. That choice matters. We are trapped inside his point of view from the start. We never stand outside him. We are locked inside a mind that is sick, vain, hungry, and unstable. The violence enters that mind long before it enters the plot. That is the key. This is not a late twist. The distortion is there from the beginning. One of the clearest early clues has nothing to do with violence or murder. It is the Dorsia call. Bateman calls the restaurant that all of these men covet. He tries to get a reservation, and what comes back does not sound like a normal rejection. It is a grotesque laugh. It sounds theatrical. It sounds like the world mocking him in a voice that exists inside his own head. A real host does not respond like a villain in a nightmare. That moment tells you the film is already bending reality through Bateman's damaged perception. His humiliation does not arrive in ordinary form. His mind turns it into something monstrous. That matters. The movie is warning you very early that you are not standing on solid ground. Then, the film keeps giving you a social world where no one truly sees anyone. They confuse names. They mistake one man for another. They speak in perfect little chains of status and jargon and brands and surfaces. No one hears anything real. No one says anything real. Their lives are made of labels, menus, skin, money, and performance. Bateman lives in a culture that registers appearance and ignores substance. That satirical layer is obvious, but the film has more on its mind than satire. This social blindness becomes the very mechanism of his fantasy. He wants to be seen. He wants to dominate. He wants to matter, and he lives in a world that cannot even identify him correctly. Then the Paul Allen sequence lays down the film's rules. On first watch, it feels grounded. That's what makes it powerful. Bateman kills Allen in the apartment. He stuffs the body into the overnight bag. He drags it out. There is blood trailing from the bag. The movie wants you to notice that. Then he gets outside, and the blood is gone. No cleanup, no panic, no consequence. The physical trace simply disappears. That is not a random slip. The film is telling you that physical reality does not behave normally inside Bateman's story. Then Lewis, on a walk with another woman, notices the bag. He does not react to the weight, smell, blood, danger, or terror. He asks about the brand. That is funny. That is satirical. It is absurd. It is another clue. In Bateman's world, image survives. Consequence evaporates. That pattern keeps building. The murders do not become more grounded as the film moves forward. They become more theatrical. They become more exaggerated. They become less believable in a physical sense and more revealing in a psychological sense. Bateman's fantasy grows in proportion to his hunger for power. He imagines himself as a man who can do anything, take anything, erase anything, and still walk through the city untouched. The more his fantasy expands, the more the film stops hiding that it is an illusion. That is the structure. The escalation is the evidence. Look at the chainsaw scene. It is one of the strongest clues in the entire film. He chases a woman through the building. He drops a chainsaw from above. It lands with absurd precision. The whole scene feels like a depraved cartoon. The geography is strange. The timing is impossible. The building does not respond like a real building. People do not pour into the hallway. Doors do not open. The event does not carry the weight of reality. It carries the weight of Bateman's inner spectacle. He is staging his own grand violence in a city that, in his mind, never truly pushes back. That is why the scene feels both shocking and ridiculous. The film is not trying to convince you of literal truth, it is showing you the shape of his delusion. Then comes the police chase, and the movie drops any remaining disguise. Bateman fires a handgun at a police car. The car explodes. He survives impossible moments. The sequence loses all attachment to realism. That matters. This is the moment where the film stops pretending. It has been distorted from the beginning, but here it becomes undeniable. A realistic thriller does not suddenly turn into a comic nightmare by accident. The film is exposing its own method. We have been inside a fantasy all along. Bateman's version of himself has finally expanded past the point where the movie can even fake realism for another second. Then the apartment scene destroys the cover-up theory. People love that theory. They say the bodies were there. They say rich people cleaned it all up. They say the realtor knows. That reading sounds neat. The film itself rejects it. Bateman returns to the apartment, and it is pristine. Nothing remains. The realtor reacts to him with discomfort and suspicion, yet the scene does not play like a woman hiding a murder site. It plays like a woman sensing that something is deeply wrong with the man in front of her. The apartment is clean for the simplest reason possible. There were no bodies there. There was nothing to scrub away. The film is not concealing the truth from you in that moment, it is revealing that there is no physical truth to recover. Then the lawyer scene closes the case. Bateman confesses. He pours everything out, including the murder of Paul Allen. The lawyer laughs it off. Then he says he had dinner with Paul Allen in London. That line is the hammer blow. People try to soften it. They say the lawyer is confused. They say all these men mix each other up. The movie has already used identity confusion 100 times, so that detail stays important. Yet the scene still works as a final contradiction. Bateman's central claim cannot survive it. If Paul Allen is alive, then Bateman's story is false. His confession fails on the most basic factual level. Then the film gives you the line that explains the whole thing. This confession has meant nothing. Literal first, philosophical second. He is confessing to a fantasy. Then the deeper sting arrives. Even a real confession would dissolve in a world this shallow. This is why the film, in an odd way, feels like a cry for help. Bateman does not just imagine violence, he narrates himself toward a breaking point. He builds an identity out of blood, dominance, fear, and spectacle. He tries to force the world to recognize the horror inside him. The world keeps refusing. It shrugs. It misnames him. It stares at the suit, the card, the reservation, the surface. His fantasy grows in direct response to that emptiness. He wants to be heard. He wants to be seen. He wants his darkness to register as power, but nothing registers. That is the deeper horror of the film. Bateman is drowning in a culture that cannot process truth. That final idea gives the ending its real bite. The movie is not asking whether Patrick Bateman got away with murder. It is asking what kind of world could produce a man like this and still fail to notice him. Bateman imagines extreme violence as the only act strong enough to break through the dead surface of his life. Even that fails. His fantasy collapses. His confession lands in a void. The terrible implication hangs there at the end. Fantasy is no longer enough. The film stops at the edge of that realization. American Psycho becomes clear once you stop treating Bateman's story like objective reality. The movie keeps showing you the breaks, the Dorsia call, the disappearing blood, the impossible chainsaw, the exploding police car, the clean apartment, the living Paul Allen. Those are not loose ends. They are the evidence. Patrick Bateman did not kill those people. He told himself a story where he did. And that story is brutal, absurd, vain, funny, pathetic, and sick. And it is the only place where he can feel powerful. That is why the ending lands so hard. The confession means nothing. The violence was never real, but the psycho was. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing for more breakdowns just like this.